Coming to the ring right now, ladies and gentlemen, out of Mound, Minnesota, at 218 pounds, he is the great Greg Gagne.
What's up, everybody? This is Dominic D'Angelo of OneTrueSportTV.com and the FourHorsemenNetwork.com. We're live today. It's a Tuesday, as per usual, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm happy to have with me here none other than the legend himself, the badass, the boss. It's Magnum TA. Magnum, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great with that intro.
How about that?
Yeah, man. Ready for it.
You know what? So I'm just gonna hit it right off the bat. I don't know if you saw this. I know we off air we said you watched a little bit of Raw. We watched Saturday's main event. But did you see our co-host Greg Gagne got referenced at the end of the show on Raw?
I missed it. I'm gonna go
You
back
missed
and watch
it?
Yeah, what they say?
Get this. All right. So Cody Rhodes, CM Punk. They come down. Cody Rhodes is down in the ring, and he's cutting a promo. He's like recovering from the after effects of what happened on Raw. And down comes CM Punk, and CM Punk's like, "Hey, are you okay?" He's like, "Listen," he's like, "We're friends." He's like, "And you don't have a lot of friends anymore. It seems like people are turning on you, going all over the place, things like that." He's like, I want to let you know that I am your friend, and I'm looking out for you." And then Cody's like, "Are you?" He's like, "Well, what's the next step for us?" But then Cody's also he's like, "So we go a long ways back, Punk." He's like, "Me and you." He's like, "We go back to the OVW days, and we were like the only two to be learning drop kicks and head scissor takedowns from Greg Gagne."
All right.
Yes.
There you go.
I popped big time. Two of the biggest faces in the
Yeah.
just
Man, that was
shout out to Greg.
great.
How about that, huh?
Yeah.
Oh man. And then now he's big timing us and he's not on the show.
He is, I believe, about to board a plane and flying back from the great island of Hawaii. And he'll be busting at the seams to tell us some stories, I'm sure, next week about his adventures.
Heck yeah. And that probably hasn't even hit his radar yet that he got referenced on Raw. I doubt.
Nah.
It'll be great to show him.
Yeah.
So getting some love. Now we got to get a shout out. Like now, I think maybe like Drew McIntyre, somebody's got to shout you out or something. We got to get something going on.
I love Drew. I met Drew here when they were working in Charlotte, probably, oh gosh, maybe over 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, when he was a babyface, clean cut, when he just first, come to work there. And I remember I met him. What a nice guy he was, and Arnold was giving him a hard time because of his accent. He said, "Nobody can understand him anyway. It doesn't matter."
Look, and the fact too that he had that chosen one gimmick starting off early on. Like Vince made note of him early on, and kind of he was the next prodigy to happen. And then you saw him kind of falter out of the favor, and then he's in the 3-man band gimmick stuff, and then all of a sudden he's gone. And much like Cody Rhodes, he had to go and cut his own path and make something of himself. And he did that outside in TNA and on the independent scene. I actually got to see him in 2015. It was at a House of Hardcore, Tommy Dreamer's promotion. I don't remember who he wrestled, but he was maybe it was Austin Aries. I think he wrestled, but he just made a name for himself. And boom, look at the creativity he's been able to do and cultivate for himself and put himself, like we talked about countless times on here, in one of the biggest feuds of 2024 when it came to him and CM Punk. And he's got the accent, but he's got a great look. He's got this charisma about him, and he knows how to handle the fans when it comes to a lot of that stuff. So it's awesome to see him in the light that he is in right now.
He had to get comfortable in his own skin, and I think he obviously put on some serious size and weight during that transition of time, and grew the beard and changed the look and developed the swagger and everything to go along with that new persona. And he totally created what we see today out there, just to your point, just like Cody did. And when he came back, he was a force of nature. And that run with him and Dolph Ziggler together was spectacular. And you could tell he was going to be a standout singles guy. He didn't need anybody to ride on the coattails or anybody to give him the rub. He was ready for it.
Oh yeah, he definitely was. And like you could tell he was itching at that moment too. Like because he would get, even when he came back, he became the NXT champion, and then he was put in that position as the enforcer for no pun intended for Dolph Ziggler, and then like you could tell he really wanted more, and like they weren't putting him in that spotlight, and then even he gets the championship. It's during COVID, and so he gets his WrestleMania moment in front of anybody. He's one fan, and it was the one above the ring. That was it. and so to see him kind of like had a lot of setbacks, a lot of challenges, and then like that's not even mentioning the personal stuff he's been going through with like family, losses and troubles there, and being overseas from one another. He's incorporated that into his character, who he is, and it's just. He gets it. And I honestly, like, I think I said this before on the show. He was my wrestler of the year last year. So I just think he just did amazing stuff with, like, his own volition. That's pretty cool.
He's our modern Randy Orton.
Yeah.
He's a big guy, can move, can tell the story in the ring, can talk. He's a Renaissance man with that size, and the accent is certainly a plus. So they can do anything they want with him. Just I'm glad they keep giving him the screen time and what they're giving him, because again, he blurs that line with reality and the storylines and what's going on, and it's so passionate. It's hard not to get vested in a character like that.
Yeah, he makes it really easy to sink your teeth into, because he does stuff like that busted open promo that we talked about, where it was like, he hates people on social media and F all you and everything like that, and walks off. And it's just like, wow, is he being serious? Where's this at work? Where's this a shoot kind of thing? And, in such a day and age where like everything is so accessible and everybody's so accessible, he's able to blur those lines still. And that's a rare thing to try to walk the balance of, because some people aren't that good at it. And Drew is one of them who's very good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No question.
Absolutely. Something I know you did see on Raw, and Triple E brought it up here first. He said, Greg got that Raw shout out. That's right. Anyone else see JD's Guardian Angel appear on Raw? Dude got some big balls to match that big head of his to continue after his head and table spot. Yeah, Magnum, that was wow. I mean, Michael Cole even was on commentary, was like, oh, big hit by JD. And then he was like, somebody seriously has to check in on him. And like, you could tell there was some concern there. Man, what a wild spot. And then he persevered and kind of powered through it and finished the match. So pretty remarkable stuff. I just want to get your thoughts on that JD McDonough spot. And he's out for a couple months too.
Yeah, and he's lucky, he's just out for a couple of months, because I mean the angle that I saw him hit his head. I mean, I was concerned that he had a neck injury right off the bat. I mean, I still cringe when I go back and see that video with Big E.
Yeah,
getting dropped on top of his head. So that bump, and right there at the corner and the edge. I mean, edges have put people out. I mean, Rick Root took a little bump, and his neck hit just a little piece of wood, stick on the floor with Sting, and broke his neck. And it doesn't take anything when you're in that kind of momentum and that kind of fall to put your head and neck at a very awkward position, and it not be able to handle the blow, the angle of it. So, yeah, my thoughts and prayers will be out to him. I hope he has a swift recovery, and a broken rib and punctured lungs are things that can mend and can heal in time, and he'll be back. It'll be better than ever, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they position him with the Judgment Day still. Well, like the Judgment Day is kind of in this unknown kind of territory right now, because Finn Balor's out, and they kind of put that question in the head: what's the future of the bloodline here? And there's been some tension between Finn and Liv, and Dominic's coming into play and stuff like that. So it'll be neat to see where the Judgment Day is at that juncture, and then what they do with JD too after he gets back too. So
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Gotta give some shout outs to some folks in here. The boss, not you, Magnum, a different boss, says that it was a fantastic segment with Cody and Punk. Eddie Prather is in the chat here too. Got to give a shout out to CJ Ortiz, who goes by Charlie as well. He says, "Hi, Dom and Magnum. Good to see you, gentlemen." And then he follows up too. He says, "See, Magnum, I'm originally from New York, but for the past 20 years, I'm in your original neck of the woods. I'm from Virginia Beach, 5 minutes from Chesapeake." So there we go.
Nice.
Representing. If you guys have some questions, be sure to get them in. I'm starring a couple right now. We'll touch upon those here as we go along. But we did want to get your thoughts too. What happened earlier over the weekend? Saturday night's main event, the second rendition of this new era for WWE. And Jesse Ventura was back in the fold. We had some pretty good matches. What really stood out to you about Saturday night's main event, Magnum?
Well, first of all, Jesse is timeless. I mean, he he hasn't missed a beat. He still got the same wit. He still can he still can come up with one-liners at the drop of a hat, and he can find something wrong and create controversy, as he did during the Braun Breaker match. He called a little snafu on the ref and said he should have been counted out and all that kind of good stuff. So he's really on top of his game. But yeah, the show was spectacular, and the production was fantastic. And I guess AEW is running Saturday night too, so there was kind of like a double knockout of sorts going on.
Yeah, Collision was on too at the same time.
Yeah, and that couldn't have played out well for them, I don't think, because every match they've got on that main event show is just that. It's a main event, and the thing that's funny to me a little bit is like, we talked about Rhea Ripley's amazing champion, but Nia, such an amazing heel. It seems so they take her, they don't, and it's hard. It's a slippery picture to paint, but when someone's not the dominant role that they were in as the champion, they can't just suddenly become a lesser version of themselves.
Right.
And I mean, absolutely, the right thing. Rhea's in the future role, what they're doing next. Who knows what's going to happen when Charlotte gets back. But all that to say, Nia Jax is like one of the best performers of all time. And to me, they watered her down a little bit. And she's just brings way too much more to the dance than that. If she gets beat, it should be, you should think she's going to kill that person right up to the minute that she gets beat. And just in my estimation, because there's so much mileage left in that tank and stories with her.
You could certainly position her where, like, almost as an attraction in certain ways, where like there's moments where, yeah, you're very selective of who she feuds with and the programs you put her with, because yeah, I think the best way to handle it is to make her feel dominant, have her get dominant wins, and like take out people, like, and then eventually you build somebody else up, or you have another established star go up against her to hype the match and further make that something.
Well, didn't she win the Queen of the Ring thing, and she was the queen? And
yeah,
I never heard of her do nothing ever else about that, really, so to speak. I mean, I'd dust that crown off and give her something else to have some attitude about her or something, and just something, because she just you don't get any bit better than what she represents for a woman of her size, stature, and ability, and can cut the promo to go along with it and move like she does in the ring. She's just one of the best.
I don't know if you remember this, Magnum, but back in, like, I think it was the early 2000s in WWE, Victoria, Lisa Yvonne, I think her real name is, she was paired up with Stevie Richards. And Stevie Richards was almost like her whipping boy in a way. Like, it would be kind of funny for her to get somebody like that, where it's like she's the queen of the ring and then she has a subservient to her that like does her bidding or whatever. And you could have a lot of fun and kind of create some creative stuff, I think, that way too. I'm with you.
Well, who was the guy that they had for a while that was kind of in that kind of role, like had the dreadlocks and could do all the flips and flies.
Oh, he was.
You
So
remember him?
yes, I do remember him. They changed his name when he went to NXT before they cut him. I can't remember but he was like Carmella's wine guy. He was
right, and a guy like that, to your point, that's what made me think of it when you said it. I mean, he was so stinking talented.
Yeah,
and could, I mean, so athletic and could do so many creative things. He just need the right storyline, and the thing with Carmella was cool. But I mean, somebody like that with her would be very entertaining.
It would be good stuff, and just like a fresh kind of coat of paint on her, where it's just like, okay, yeah, she's back to the queen. That like she doesn't have the title anymore, but she's a heel, so of course she's gonna go back to the queen of the ring kind of ideal and stuff like that. Reggie was his name that they used.
Yeah, there you go.
So thank you guys. But yeah, I thought that was some great stuff. Speaking of Rhea Ripley, though, she made a little mention. I want to get your thoughts on this. She was interviewed over the weekend and was at and she kind of made a little tease about being in the men's Royal Rumble match this coming week.
I heard that. She said I might need to toss my hat in there with the men.
Yes,
enter the men's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Do you think that would be a good move or clever?
I think it was clever, but I don't think the WWE. I mean, there was only one China, and she pulled all that off, just crazy. And I don't think they need that for a storyline. I've seen what happens when they try to blur that line with my sweet Tessa back in the day. And I mean, it's intriguing to a point, and then it gets to where it's hard to find an out, and it can be hard to recover from.
Yeah, so there was China in there. She was the first to do it. They had Beth Phoenix show up, and then Nia Jax. I can't remember what year it was, but she showed up in there, and she dominated a little bit, but then she got RKO'd by Randy Orton and certain things like that. So it's a tough kind of line to walk.
Yeah. I mean, he'd get a pop and he'd get a buzz, but I just don't like, personally. I mean, it's entertainment, but I don't want to see a girl get RKO'd. I don't like to see that. Period. I think there's too many other things you can do to create interest without doing something like that. It's kind of a cheap pop. I mean, it's kind of is what it is.
Well, you know what, too? It's like, and I was on my other show, too. I was kind of for it, like a little bit. I was like, oh, you could kind of pull something off. And like, she would definitely fit into that mix if you had Nia Jax in there. You had Beth Phoenix in there before. But like, to your point, it's kind of like, I don't know, because you now have a women's Royal Rumble match. So is there really a point to have a woman get involved in the men's Royal Rumble match? I think it kind of does a disservice to the women's Royal Rumble match in a certain way.
Yeah, and if it's a heel, and she comes in there and does something cute and smacks somebody in the back of the head, and then jumps herself over the top rope to the floor and like, hi, you never touched me, kind of thing. That's one thing. But to put them out there, mixing them up, in the physicality of it, is just, like I said, you got too many monsters.
Yeah,
you got in the woodwork.
Oh,
speaking of monsters, good gosh, what about Braun Strowman and Jacob? Oh my God!
Talk about that. What'd you think about that?
Man, did they make him the unleashed beast of all time? They could not have done that any better whatsoever. I mean, Braun did him right, and made him look like the flipping mad monster pit bull on the end of a chain that came unleashed. And I thoroughly enjoyed seeing more into what that story can unfold, because that was brutality at its utmost.
Oh my gosh, yes. And the neat thing about Fatu is like seeing him cut that promo too. It's just like, man, it was like he hyped like being on NBC, but he hyped this like badass attitude where it's just like he does not give any F's about anything. And it's just like and then he wrecks somebody like Braun Strowman getting him internal bleeding, and he's splashing him and moonsaulting him and just being relentless. It really positions Fatu in such a great thing, and it's only further building up his unbridled rage kind of thing, and how unstoppable he can be. So
if they build him right, if they get Roman back stance with a belt around his waist, those two somewhere down the road are huge money.
Yes. Would you continue him just being a monster heel, or do you see more value in him as a baby face right now?
He needs to be a heel for a while.
I'm with it.
He needs to have that attitude and really do things that get heat. Because if you're really getting heat, you're not going to be a baby face. If you're really got people gasping at the things you're doing, that's not going to turn you baby face.
No.
So yeah, they need to stay leaning into what they're doing. I mean, if he were to have done that to Cody, or well, I can't think of anybody else right now off the top of my head besides Cody. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, that guy's if they keep him in line, I don't know what he's like to manage as a talent. I suspect he's rather colorful sometimes, but yeah, that I would have loved to work with somebody like that back in the day.
Yeah, I got to interact with him a few times when I was backstage at MLW and stuff like that. And he is a very colorful character, but he's smart too. The neat thing about it, he did this one match. I can't remember who it was against, but in the match, he hurt his leg, and he's like just favoring his leg the whole time. And everybody's just thinking he's hurt, like he's legitimately hurt. Here, he was just pulling it off and just doing ring psychology and stuff like that. But he had everybody fooled. Like it was just, he's very, very smart to the business and everything like that. So it's going to be pretty exciting. And now that you have minds like back in WWE, like Paul Heyman and, Triple H and all, it's just like, man, possibilities are endless with Fatu right now. And so it's going to be super cool to see what they decide to do with him. And I think this is a great opportunity too for LA Knight, because he's in this feud with him, and it's just like, so, and that's kind of where what they're perpetuating right now. It seems like is LA Knight has a beef with him, and I think LA Knight's got a great character and personality, but I also kind of, in my opinion, I think he's kind of plateaued in this personality. Yeah, he has very Rock-esque and Stone Cold-esque. I think this is going to help him out and kind of get a little bit more fire and like different kind of vibe to him in certain ways. So I'm excited to see what they do with that as well. So. But let's see what else they said. Oh, okay. So the boss says the fans were cheering for Fatu after that match. I don't see a turn happening right now. Way too early. Got to make him the big monster like Umaga, Vader, Braun, etc. Exactly. So I completely agree with you on that one. Let me think what else I wanted to talk about.
And Gunther certainly held up. His title reign is just rolling on, steady, believable, credible. No niches in the armor. Just man, he's like watching Sherman's March or something. Yeah, he's on track. He's on task. I'm sure they got a long game figured out there, but it's cool watching the journey, because he gets more mileage out of one chop. And of course he's got Jey Uso, and they're selling like an auctioneer for him. But but people just believe he's got hands like center blocks, and when he hits you, it means something.
Oh yeah, it definitely means something. And I like too that it's pretty unknown who, like, you could put several bets on different people to win the Royal Rumble at this juncture, and like and the WrestleMania card, where the WrestleMania card is going to line up. There's so many possibilities that you can do when it comes to who will face Gunther, who will face Cody. I think WWE's done a very good job at making it unknown and giving a lot of teases as the possibilities, but there's no surefire bet on who's going to win, and it'll be neat to see who they pair Gunther up with, I think, especially. Somebody that did get paired up is Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. They're going to have their ladder match at the Royal Rumble, but we had a pretty fun segment, including Shawn Michaels into that on the Saturday Night's Main Event. Any thoughts on what happened and transpired there?
I thought it was classic. It was classic storytelling. You didn't know right up to the last minute if he was going to sign the daggone contract. I mean, they milked that for all that it was worth, and I'm glad Sean got the super kick there in the end, and it was, yeah. I mean, Kevin's always been a excellent talker, but
Yes.
I didn't realize how much more interesting it was going to be with his heel turn, because it's really he's leaned into it heavy, and he's got such a story. Well, I mean, I almost hate to see it end,
Yeah.
because they're gonna have a hard time following it, because it was such a good angle. I mean, obviously they're not gonna. I don't believe they're gonna make Kevin the new champion, but it has been he has been one of the most intriguing storylines that Cody's been involved in yet, and I don't think anybody really saw that coming. So
Hmm.
they really took us down some ups and downs and all arounds to get there, and created a great storyline in the almost out of nowhere. That
Yeah.
that was really genius creating, and that's what great booking committees or bookers or whoever's the ultimate sayer of who does what, you know, pulls together. I'm sure it's a collective effort, but I know that I know that Triple H has got that passion for that special touch on things, from Penta's entrance to the fine tuning of things that take something from being, hey, that was really good, to something that just blows your mind and so captures your imagination that you're talking about it to your friends the next day. Man, did you see that? That was amazing.
Hmm.
And that's what gives you the satisfaction of doing it that well, even though they know it's a work. It's You did it so well, they were hooked, and they didn't see it coming.
That's the neat thing about it too, is like, if you think about it, like if you take a step back and look at, okay, Kevin Owens is feuding with Cody Rhodes at the start. It's an intriguing feud, but it's like, okay, well, you gotta take me along for a good ride. That's the question that comes into play, and then they do it. They make it one of the most fascinating storylines going right now, and it's in part with Cody, the star power that he's at, and then the creative tendencies of Kevin Owens. Like, he makes it fun. Like those T-shirts that he's coming out with when it comes to like the
Oh
son of
yeah,
a
like
technician or whatever, Canadian son of a
yeah,
technician.
yeah. He's a throwback to Terry Funk. You egg sucking dog. He, he's called Dusty. I mean, it's just like everything is old is new again at some point in time if you persevere long enough.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm shamelessly plugged too, because not only can you get Magnum TA merch at 1tsport.com, but you can get the OG Dusty Sucks Egg shirt at .com.
Oh, I love it.
So be sure to check that out. We have a lot of classic ones on there. We got I Broke Wahoo's Leg. We got a Ole Anderson style tee on there. Plenty of ones that you'll definitely recognize if you go to 1tsport.com and hit our classics section. So check it out. We'll plug some more merch here later on as well. But what else did I want to talk about too on there? Just in regards to the Royal Rumble itself. If you had to pick somebody to win it, who would be your choice? And who do you think is going to win?
Well, I got to think somehow John Cena is going to get his hand up.
Yeah,
I
that's a good one.
I do not believe they're going to let him hang that hat up without one more.
Yes.
I just don't, because it is, there's factions there that probably don't want, the WWE star to be in a tie with Rick. They would rather, though I think if truth be known, I think Rick's really had it more than 16 times. I think they're not counting a few of them, but I just think that that's the way they want the story to end. And they're gonna let Babe Ruth get up to bat one more time and be the George Foreman of wrestling. One more shot.
I'm with you. I think that would just be a missed opportunity if they didn't do that with Cena. And I almost do feel like it should happen at WrestleMania is the thing it should happen at, because and whether he A wins the Royal Rumble or B wins the Elimination Chamber to get his shot, I think doing something like that would be make the stakes and everything and kind of elevate a WrestleMania that could potentially not have The Rock there feel like a big deal. I think because you're bringing Cena back into the fold, and he's got that. He's making a record that's going on. So yeah, I think if I had to choose, I almost say I think CM Punk's going to win the Rumble, and then Cena might win the Elimination Chamber. But those are my early predictions on that.
And again, Punk, you couldn't go wrong either way.
Mm-hmm.
It's to what they can paint the best underdog picture.
Yeah.
With John. Yeah, I mean, he's going to still be the American hero fighting from the bottom up to overcome all odds and never say never, one more time, last hurrah kind of thing. He still looks great. I mean,
yeah.
He can still go. I mean, it's not even remotely like it's a stretch. He can represent and go out there and put the time in I'm going to sit back and get a cold one and watch it like everybody else and go along for the ride and not try to worry about it, try to figure it out.
Me too. This is going to be the first time in a couple of years I won't be at the Rumble, so I will just be watching on television, and I'll crack open a cold one too and be tuning in to see what happens. It's going to be Royal Rumble's my favorite. That's my favorite pay-per-view, I think, out of all of them, just because I think it's exciting.
Oh, it is. The anticipation. What's next? What surprise they got? They're going to give you something exciting that you couldn't foresee. I mean, I still remember popping when Jordan Grace came out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And here she is now, signed with the WWE. Of course, Ray Charles could have seen that coming, but it was still a big pop to see her on that scene like that, and and it's cool. It's like it's the things people want to imagine and see come to life, and it's great that they give them those.
Well, yeah, and you kind of reference it there too in a way. Is like it's awesome to see Jordan Grace there, and the heavy rumor is that like TNA World Champion Joe Hendry might be in the Royal Rumble coming up here this weekend, and then but that ongoing and growing connection that TNA has with WWE, it's been such a cool thing to do, because it's like you wouldn't fathom this several years ago. Now it's becoming a reality, and now they're leaning into it. They're embracing it, and it's a cohesive effort where talents are coming in between both shows, and nobody's looking less than. I think people are each.
No, not at all. I mean, I watched the TNA show from San Antonio, last week, and everything they did, it meant something. Having somebody from NXT at the commentating table, and lending flavor to that, and then the girl that came out and had the little joust with the women's champ, during her match.
Was that Cora Jade?
Cora Jade, yeah. I mean, just they got enough that they can keep everybody guessing, and to your point, now you've got just a bigger chessboard. Now you're playing on 3 different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a matter of who's getting taken advantage of. Is bringing the game up and the intrigue for both brands, because you don't know who's going to show up on either show.
And the neat thing is, and people haven't even maybe considered this, but the cool thing about this relationship is TNA has such a backlog of talent history and footage of current WWE stars, like Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles. The Cody Rhodes even made some appearances on TNA back in the day.
The general manager,
Nick Aldis, exactly. So there's a lot you can have a lot of fun with, and like kind of cross promote and make this all just feel like a real cool deal going on. And the neat thing about TNA as well is the name itself, the brand name. It's just like, hey, it's got a connotation with the history of wrestling. It's been around for 20 years. And so it's kind of have that. It's nice to have that in your back pocket as well It's cool to see TNA getting this opportunity because so many times TNA looked dead in the water. It was like they were at death's door. It felt like 5 occasions at least. And now it's cool to see them back in like a primary spot where they're getting great attendance. The storylines are intriguing and fun. And yeah, you have this cross promotion with WWE. You can't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah, so. And you know, and Tesla has certainly not hurt their buzz in the women's division. There, they've had more eyes on what's going on the women's side since she burst into the scene, and she's leaned in hard on this this heel lane. And you know, it's funny because you couldn't anymore tell a baby face than Man of the Moon if you put a gun to your head. And Tessa has, you know, they have so oft, you know, had her in a babyface role, and I've always said in my head, you know, y'all are missing it. She's not a babyface. She's a heel. She's got a heart bigger than all outdoors, but her natural propensity and how she's going to be able to, you know, be sarcastic and I mean, whew, yeah, I mean, sharp-witted to cut you to the bone if she chooses to do so. Yeah, funny story.
Yeah,
and it's true. So Tessa once in an acting class cut a promo on another female that so hit so many nerves and cut to the bone that she got like monster heat from the people she worked with because they got their feelings hurt. And you know, that's what a great heel does. That's what Jim Cornette could make you so mad you wanted to kill him. Bobby the Brain Heenan could do the same thing. People that can talk and know how to you know, jab and twist and find enough of reality to tie together with the story that they're telling. That's the people that can lean into that heel lane. And that's a craft. Just like being a fiery babyface is a craft. But you either have that propensity or you don't. And Tessa has got the makings to be one of the best heels, regardless of her stature, that the business has ever seen. So mark my words, today, you know, is you know, people can say, oh well, you know, maybe she's going to turn over a leaf and show a kind heart and be a good girl. She's not meant to be a good girl. She's a bad girl. She needs to be a bad girl and kick ass, take names, and talk to people while she's kicking their ass. And that's where she is going to excel. She's going to do well because nobody works harder. There's nobody that laces up a pair of boots and a female that goes in a wrestling ring works any harder than Tessa. And you can't, that hard work will not be denied. Eventually it will put you in the right place at the right time, and you will, you know, they'll be talking about you for a long time.
No doubt about it. And so for clarity, this was an acting class she was in. She was not doing a promo class, correct? It was a theater class.
It was associated with that, but it was something everybody was taking part in.
Yeah,
no, it was supposed to be part of something for wrestling, but it just shows you got this world of people that are in the business that have come from all different walks of life.
Oh yeah,
and so they grow up around it, and they haven't developed a thick skin to realize that, you know, this is part of the deal.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like the line in Roadhouse when the guy said, well, what if he says my mama's a whatever? And he said, well, is she? You know, yeah, you can't think that way and be in the business. You've got to be, you know, this isn't like something some script writer comes down and can put in your lap and then you go try to make it your own. This is something that comes out of your DNA, that you've got the ability to just rattle off. Can you imagine somebody trying to write for Paul Heyman
Oh my God.
for Jim Cornette? Give me a break. You can all sit in a room and have $1 million worth of writers in there, and you're not going to write what you know, a true artist is going to be able to come out with. in the heat of what they're trying to portray. And that's still the art form, and it's good to see that there's folks that are getting the chance and the abilities to go do those things. They might give them some creative input and some suggestions and whatnot, but they still have some freedom to have their personalities, and that's how CM Punk and Dusty Rhodes and superstar Billy Graham and Muhammad Ali, how they all were able to capture the imagination of their fans and people that loved them or hated them because they were able to do something magic.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like if you're able to cut to the core of somebody, whether that's you make them feel something good or you make them feel something bad, it's like that's an innate talent that wrestlers always should want to have. Because I mean, you can have all the athleticism in the ring you want, and you can do all these kinds of moves and stuff like that, but if you cannot connect with a fan or somebody watching on television or anything like that, then you are missing out on a big aspect of the sport itself. And the funny thing is like, yeah, with wrestlers and doing promo classes, it's like very much because when I was curious about the theater class, because I was like, well, theater kids, Tessa knows what theater kids.
Oh yeah, no, you couldn't do that to a theater kid, but
yeah.
these were people that were supposed to be smart and weren't so smart.
Yeah, and they still get hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you hurt my feelings.
Right.
I can imagine coming over to Dago and Tully after when we were having the Dago and Optic. You really hurt my feelings. Well, you said
hey, that was bad. Can you imagine?
You talked about my family. I don't know. I don't know if I can deal with that. I may go home. Had to have a little time out.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Well, that's the thing too, is Tessa played sports in high school and did stuff like that. If you do not play organized sports, I think you're missing a lot of aspects of like that hard hitting kind of thing, both from a physical standpoint and from like the mental aspect of it all. Like it's tough.
If you couldn't trash talk somebody, you can't play the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's it.
You got to be. You can't, I mean, you got your people that just go through the motions, and you got people that play with passion.
That's it.
Yeah, I heard Larry Bird was one of the biggest trash talkers ever got on the court, and he was one of the best players of the game ever, and would tell you what he's going to do and then go do it, and you still couldn't stop it.
Right? That's it. You still couldn't stop him. Hey, want to shut him up? Play on the court and play as good as him. That's a tough task to worry about. So good stuff. That's great. All right, let's take a few fan questions here before we close on out. Speaking of Jim Cornette, we have a Jim Cornette question here. GT asks, Magnum, thoughts on Jim Cornette in Mid-South before his time in the NWA? Did you interact with him in Mid-South?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I worked Wrestling 2 and I, before he turned heel and we worked our program, we were the Mid-South Tag Team Champions. So when the Midnight Express came into Mid-South, we worked the whole territory, the whole loop with those guys every night. And Cornette was just, he wasn't a third wheel. He was the third man, truly in that team. His participation on the outside of the ring, being a distraction, just riling up the fans, doing all the things that he did during the matches was second to none. And then, of course, his work on the mic when they did the interviews and the promos was, like going to a master's class. So I had a lot of fun working with him, being around him, and then going on to work with him a little bit in Jim Crockett Promotions. I had a friend named the Midnight Rider, and the James Boys roughed him up a little bit one night, but he was always a true fan and someone that loved the business first, and then was passionate to want to be the best performer that he could be. And I never saw him ever give anything but a 5-star performance, not one time. He had never left any on the table.
Yeah, how polarizing he is with people in wrestling. It's like you cut to the core of a lot of like the smarts of the business and the genius of the game and certain things like that. And there's a lot of wrestlers that definitely agree with his thought process on how the business should be handled, how stories should be told. A lot of things that go on with it. And then, like, Cornette's just outspoken. He's just an outspoken dude, and that's kind of how he always is. And not afraid to say his opinion or speak his mind, whether you agree with him or not. So he's an intriguing character, and I don't listen to his podcast that often, but I do think it's cool to have that other take that you don't necessarily get sometimes from a lot of people still in the business or anything like that, because he'll just say how he feels about it. So yeah, it's cool stuff to learn about Cornette, and he's always somebody that gets a lot of hits online, that's for sure. So let's see a couple more questions here. Here's a good one here. Jeff Jones, hey Magnum, any memories of wrestling in Macon, Georgia at the Macon Coliseum?
Not anything specific to Macon. I mean, it was, honestly, I spent more time in Macon after my wreck when I was working for WCW, because we would go there and film some, do some of our programming and do some work there. But, during my, actual in-ring career, that wasn't like a mainstay stomping ground. I mean, the Crockett Promotions, NWA, they would go there, but it was occasional. It wasn't like our monthly, circuit we had of Greensboro and Richmond and Norfolk and Charlotte and Atlanta and those major cities. It was but it was a huge wrestling town. I mean, it was passionate, Southern, good old boy folks that had seen it all, from Bob Armstrong to Mr. Wrestling 2 to you name it. I mean, they'd seen it all. So, yeah, nothing but good memories down there, but not any one standout, big deal that, where I had a history-making moment.
Yeah. No, it's so many different places to travel around and hit. I'm sure there's like a lot of memories that come into play, but it's also a lot like, wow, okay, we've been there, done that here. Stephen Green follows up kind of with a similar question too. Salute Magnum. I'm from Richmond. What is your favorite city? What was your favorite city to wrestle in?
Well, my favorite probably had to be Norfolk,
Yeah.
Scope, because of the family connection. My mom and dad were always there. Generally speaking, I had one or two granddaddies up in the stand. I had people that I worked with when I was in the nightclub business who would come down to the matches, and I I remember wrestling Nikita in a steel cage match. And one of the guys that I used to work with in security, a guy named Mike Proctor, he was sitting down on the front row, and I was up on top, and I'm hitting Nikita, bam, bam, I'm hitting it with the punches. And when I came down, my forearm went into the top of the chain link fence that that has barbed edges on it, and I drove that wire right into my own forearm as I'm like punching down, and I couldn't sell it because it had nothing to do with what was going on. But my friend was sitting down there looking me in the eye, and I looked at him, and he saw it, and he registered it, and he knew what I just did. And we laughed about it afterwards because, man, I mean, it hurt so stinking bad that I couldn't put it over. I just drove this daggone steel piece right through my own forearm in the middle of making a comeback.
Man, oh, jeez. That's some JD McDonough stuff right there. Powering through.
Another day at the office.
Another day at the office. Yes, indeed. Here we go. Here's a cool question here. Pez asks, in theory, could WWE buy smaller promotions that are out across the country, but not label them as WWE? Could it be possible to have a territory system again where the champion could travel to them? That's pretty interesting. What do you think of that, Magnum?
I think they could partner with smaller promotions and do kind of the things that they're doing with TNA, and lend the strength of the WWE universe to elevate their promotion, their stars, and do things, and and make it to where, if people come out, maybe, they book a WWE star that's, in some kind of little thing in some of these places to help draw interest to the towns. I don't know that you would ever be big enough to run wrestling 7 nights a week in all the little small places like we were able to do back, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But they could certainly bring them up where they could, possibly, have much stronger showing, maybe, running, I don't know, 10 towns a month and elevate their game by some kind of association, I think. But to build it back to the true storytelling thing that once was, the reason it wouldn't work is because of social media. I mean, you had to go to the towns to find out the rest of the story back in the day. We teased you and we made television and advertising piece, and you came to the towns to see the feud settled. But now, if the feud settled on night one of 5 or 6 days of booking, it's already settled. It's done, and you can't play it out the same way you to get so much mileage out of things.
Yeah, yeah. That would be a tough one to kind of pull off too, I think, because you'd have to make, if you have a traveling champion go around, I think you could kind of do it in a certain way, but you would have to try to establish that other person that they're facing on the independent scene to the mainstream kind of thing. Oh, say for example, Braun Breaker's traveling around with the Intercontinental Championship. He's facing, I'm going to use a name in IWC here, Sam Holloway in IWC. Well, who is Sam Holloway? We got to get to know who this person is and have the intrigue of Braun Breaker facing this person. And you also want to try to be conscientious too. This is your star talent. You don't want to get them to get hurt.
Right. And you're not going to have people sitting through hour Broadways like they did, when Ric Flair, poor guy, he busts his rear end to become the world champion. Then he can't win a match. He's got to go an hour Broadway everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
And so they don't hurt their own internal ability to draw. I mean, it was a catch-22 that was, they got a lot of mileage out of it, but it was in its day, its time, its media restrictions of what, we thought Dave Meltzer was a big deal back then, writing the scandal sheets and writing stuff up. He wasn't a drop in the bucket to what was to come.
Yeah.
Frankly, I'm surprised he's done so well and been able to stay relevant all these years. I mean, my hat's off to him. He's got to be a smart guy to have done what he's done over such an expansive time.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah, with Meltzer, it's like, he's another polarizing guy nowadays too when it comes to stuff. People accuse him of being biased with AEW, certain things like that. But like the thing is he's been able to weather a lot of the changes in media. Like when it comes to, hey, you have a newsletter that you put together, a physical newsletter that you assemble, you send out to people that you subscribe to. That's a tedious kind of process. And then to be able to kind of function with the times and realize that, hey, we got to make a more online component. And then on top of it too, we need to have almost a YouTube component going on and just putting yourself out there. It's people say what they will about Meltzer and have their own thoughts about it, but to be able to kind of get yourself into that mix where these new outlets, and there's a lot of aggregates, and I'm a part of one of them. It's just like to still stay relevant in this scope of things is admirable at the very least.
Yeah, it's not just working hard. It's smart. He's working smart. And because if it was just hard working, then everybody would be able to crack the nut. Because there's plenty of people out there who don't mind putting in the time if success will eventually come with it. But that's the magic mojo that goes with the formula, that intangible thing. You can't buy that in a bottle, and you've got to do the magic yourself to be in the right place at the right time for all that to happen. And to do that sustainably over 20, 30, 40 years, that's strong.
Yeah. I know Greg Gagne's best buddy, Eric Bischoff's real good friends with Dave Meltzer. He actually doesn't like Dave at all.
That'd be good. Dave and Eric and Greg.
My God.
In a 3-man, last man standing match. That'd be good.
Could you imagine moderating that whole debate between those three?
No, I'm talking about a real fight.
Oh, you want to fight? Do it. Let's make it happen. Hey, well, people can have some fun fake fights with some Power Town figures. You got some new ones back behind you there, Magnum.
Oh, well, funny you should say. I'm going to show you one.
All right.
I'm going to show you two.
All right. PowerTownWrestling.com, guys, if you want to check some of this stuff out and any updates that come forth.
So they're on the way. They're coming across the globe at a snail's pace, but I had a set flown in. So this is Ricky and Robert. And I know the glare is probably not playing real friendly with all this, but this is the soft goods, the details, the thing on this are absolutely amazing. I was going to send a picture of this to Ricky and Robert, and I hadn't even done it yet because I wanted to show it on here first. You can see with the artwork on the back.
That's awesome.
Back of the package and everything. And Hal Haney did this artwork for us. He's a big part of our team here and what we do. And then this was that little I Quit match thing.
Hey now.
So,
yes.
You turn it this way. Yeah. So yeah. And again, I haven't taken them out of the package yet because I'm kind of enjoying just just seeing the whole deal, but I will eventually take them out because I know I'll be able to get another set of them.
Yeah.
But they came out like absolutely way better than I possibly imagined. I was concerned in the beginning that the ultras were so good that the attention to detail would not be as good, with a smaller rendering and a different stylization. But the artist absolutely nailed this thing, and I couldn't be any happier with the way the product came out. I know the fans have waited a really long time for it. They'll be in sometime, probably by the end of next month, and we'll be in a position to start fulfilling. Oddly enough, you wouldn't believe this, but it takes almost as long to get them from California to our fulfillment center as it does to get them from China to LA.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
The ship ride, and then what you have to go through between customs and dealing with transportation companies and everything else, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just like the whole process is anywhere from 6 to 7 weeks from the time they leave the factory.
My God.
And the only way you can abate that is to fly them in, and it costs so much to fly, something in of that quantity. You couldn't charge enough to make that make sense to the consumer. But anyway, they came out exceptionally well, and I think the people that have waited for them are going to be really excited when they get them in their hands.
That's awesome. It looks great. The Remcos are such a cool looking figure, the old school ones even. And so it's neat to see them in the modern version of it all. And yeah, Hal Haney, he's an amazing artist. He does some great work in the pro wrestling world. He's got handprints and artistry all over the grid. So it's good to see him get that kind of recognition too. So shout out to Hal as well. So guys, if you want to keep updated on all that stuff, go to PowerTownWrestling.com. Be sure to bookmark it. Keep your eyes peeled for any updates and things like that. And we'll be sure to update you on here, obviously. You get the first look at all this stuff. So it's pretty cool to have that. As far as anything else goes, yes, like I said before, go to 1tsport.com. You can get yourself some Magnum TA merch. We got the hoodie. It's still cold up here in Pittsburgh, and you can get a zip hoodie there. The original Magnum TA logo on there. Plus, you can get a mug, too. Get some coffee in there. Maybe put a little Irish coffee in there if you want. But scan that QR code. Check it out. You can get that. You can also represent the man who got a shout out, Mr. Greg Gagne, high flyer. Get a mug of his too, or you can get that Pegasus hoodie as well. There's plenty of more merchandise for both Magnum and Greg on 1tsport.com. If you guys like and you want to follow more Be sure to follow Magnum on Instagram at Magnum_TA. You can also follow him on X at The Real Magnum TA. You can follow me on Instagram at Dom.D'Angelo. You can follow Greg on Instagram at Gagne.Greg. He always posts some cool photos and some vintage stuff of AWA as well. What else do I want to say to you? Oh, yes. If you're tuning in right now, 4horsemanetwork.com or 1TrueSportNetwork.com. Stay tuned. 6 p.m. Hey, we talked about them both. You can tune in to Arn and Tully live at 6 p.m. later on today. So you're getting a double dose of some NWA legends right here hitting the house. So pretty cool stuff. And be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast feed. I'll get this last week's episode up and this week's episode up on 4 Horseman Network. Just type that in your podcast feed of choice. You'll get Magnum, you'll get Greg, you'll get Arn Anderson, you'll get some good stuff. So and this has been good stuff. Magnum will try to have Greg back next week. I think he's the one that's been really preparing for the Royal Rumble. That's why we're not seeing him right now.
Ooh, that's a thought.
Think about that, huh? Him coming out with Tiffany or something. I don't know. Never know what could happen.
Offline.
Every man for himself. All right, guys. Hey, we'll see you next time here on Straight Talk with the Boss. That's Magnum TA. He's the boss, and you better listen to him, okay? All right. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.